Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the recap and review of NCIS Season 13, Episode 23, Dead Letter. So this episode starts out with a really distraught Gibbs bursting into the ICU. Gibbs even tries to get Cyril Taft in on it to help, but the doctor is having none of it and is like, you need to prepare yourself. And Gibbs does not take that well, because shortly thereafter he vows to find Jacob Scott and kill him. We go back to Gibbs's house where we find that Jessica Turday is dead. He just got Turday. He already got tomorrow, so as soon as he gets yesterday, we're in big trouble. The spirit of Diane is back in the form of her and Fornell's daughter, Emily. There's a lot of really great bonding moments in this episode between Gibbs and Emily, and I really enjoy their relationship. Gibbs literally seems like a second father to her, and it's just so great whenever they're interacting. We also get the brief update on Fornell that he's not doing so hot, but a lesser man would have been dead by that point, so that's kind of good. Back at NCIS, we're introduced to Agent Monroe. There it's revealed that there's two former spies from NCIS that Jacob is after, so NCIS has to find them before he does. Then there's a scene in which Abby, Gibbs, a skeleton, and other forensic objects have a little prayer circle for Fornell, and it is beautiful. That scene's then interrupted by Emily, who calls Gibbs in a panic to say that her father has a do not resuscitate order. Basically, if he dies, no one's knocking on death's door to pick him up. Gibbs is then revealed to be Fornell's durable power of attorney in case he can't make any decisions on his own. Which, first of all, oh, that's kind of sweet, actually. Second of all, Gibbs tears up the document in order to give Fornell a greater chance to fight. The team then rushes to a house where they believe that one of the spies is staying, only to be introduced to Clayton Reeves, about to straight up murder a man. Who is that man? Well, it's none other than the infamous Trent Court. So DiNozzo and Gibbs are talking to Clayton Reeves and Trent Court, and they're trying to figure out why he was there. Trent Court said the whole scuffle started because he walked in the house and saw someone standing over his old friend's dead body, that the agent had just called him saying that he believed someone was following him, so Trent Court was just trying to be a nice friend. Because you know how the words friend and nice both accurately apply to Trent Court. Reeves was also the agent that DiNozzo was working with when he was in London. There's a scene with Monroe and McGee in the car, and they seem like the ultimate, buddy cop grouping. It's also here that she calls McGee out on not proposing to his girlfriend yet. Give the man some time. They catch the other agent, Agent King. They bring him back to NCIS, and Gibbs and Reeves interrogate him. Gibbs seems to have taken kind of a liking to Reeves because he tells a joke and Gibbs laughs. He seems a lot like a young Tony DiNozzo. He gives them the location of Jacob's, safe house room. The safe house location ends up being at, a newly formed holistic health place. They bring up Rolfing, which is kind of an interesting callback to Life Before His Eyes. Maybe this is where Jemmy Palmer goes on the weekends, who knows? They bring the footage from the security cam back to Abby's lab. Through that, they figure out that Scott was looking for someone. It turns out Jacob Scott was looking for Ziva David. I'm sure this can only lead to good things. Now, upon rewatching this scene, there was something that I noticed, and I saw some other people notice it as well, which is cool. So they bring up the page on Ziva that Jacob Scott had found, and the full page is only on screen for half a second. But if you read the full paragraph under career, there's a line towards the end that says that after Ziva went back to Israel in 2013, she eventually returned to Mossad and became an agent again. The first time I read that, I was genuinely really surprised. A lot of past, present, and future revolved around the fact that Ziva wanted to move away of that whole aspect of her life and let go of the badge. So the fact that she rejoined Mossad was something I was definitely not expecting. However, this might be a good sign. In case you don't recall, Ziva wasn't at the greatest point in her life in past, present, future. So the fact that she's back at Mossad, I'm really hoping that this means she maybe worked through some things and is kind of at a better place, in her life. Not that she died. Well, spoilers. But that aside, I do really hope that she's in a better place in her life and at a better place with herself. It would be really great and exciting if her life was better than when we left it. I really hope she wasn't, forced to rejoin Mossad or anything horrible like that. That would be less great than the other scenario. Tony tries to contact Ziva, and he says that her phone is disconnected and she's not answering emails. which raises some questions. First of all, I would love to know what this email said. Subject line, impending doom, please respond. I would be curious to know when her phone was disconnected. Like, did she disconnect it when she went to Israel? Or was it recently disconnected because she knew that she was being hunted down? And I get that he might have been surprised because he would have assumed that after all these years, if he was finally contacting her, she would have realized that it was probably something important and picked up. And the fact that she wasn't answering made him nervous. It was something I thought was interesting. Trent reappears to give the full case files and to also poke the bear. Court asks Tony if he's worried about his girlfriend, so Tony tries to physically push him back in time to retract the statement. Everyone's confused. Why Ziva? To the point that this episode should have just been called Ziva? ? Then Emily's in the hospital room with Fornell trying to get him to wake up, and I guess through the power of the prayer circle and the fear of getting tiny watermelons painted on his toes, Fornell starts to wake up. Emily's right in front of him and she's like, I love you, can you hear me? Fornell's mumbling something and she's like, what? What is it? You love me too? And then Fornell's like, Gibbs. Emily, don't you see? Gibbs will always be number one in Fornell's heart. Emily calls the team and relays the information that Fornell gave them about the cell phone company that Scott was using so that they can track his calls and his cell phone. Bishop is really invested in this case to the point where she kind of shoves Gibbs aside, and I'm surprised she didn't immediately collapse afterwards because the look Gibbs is giving her is just shooting daggers. But they are able to track his cell phone and they track it to the main elevator. What would they have done without that 0.2-second warning? I just don't know. Gibbs brings Jacob to interrogation and asks him why he's hunting Ziva. And he says that Ziva can prove he's innocent. What? It turns out that someone is framing Jacob Scott, and has been since the original case in 2002. Eli David allegedly had files that could have proved that Jacob was innocent, but he was keeping it in case he needed to blackmail someone or something else Eli Davidish. He had assumed that when Eli died, Ziva had inherited the files, so that's why he was trying to find her. Also through Ziva, he found Gibbs and turned himself in because he thought Gibbs was the only one who could really help him. The plot twist that's happening. Abby discusses the case files with Court. You know, if they're trusting Trent Court, times are tough and stakes are high. Abby's then able to help prove that Jacob's telling the truth because she said while the fingerprints found and his fingerprints do match, they match too perfectly. She thinks that someone's using the prints from his file to frame him. There was also a different blood type found at the scene of the crime from where the other agent spy was killed. Abby says whoever the other blood type matches is the killer. The blood type matches Trent Court. While Bishop and DiNozzo are off hunting for Court, Gibbs lets Monroe and Reeves take over an interrogation. Once again, they're interrogating King, the other spy. Agent Monroe unleashes some siren-level seduction techniques to get this guy to give them answers. Meanwhile, Agent Reeves is playing with an orange that he has in his hands for some reason. But it works because the spy tells them that Trent Court was the one who paid him the money to give him secrets. So now the hunt is on for Trent Court. They realize that he's probably on his way to Israel. At this point, the team is pulling out all the stops to try and find her, but all they really had to do was turn on the news. Because then McGee shows them the broadcast reporting that there has been an explosion at Eli David's farmhouse. A shocked and horrified Tony then tells the other shocked and horrified people in the room that that's where Ziva was supposed to be staying. We end with a to be continued, and that is Dead Letter. So I'm gonna go right off the bat and say that I really like this episode. Let's start with what we know about Agent Monroe and Agent Reeves. I feel like we got a lot of interesting tidbits about Monroe. If Reeves seems a little DiNozzo, she seems a little Gibbs. She seems like a pretty decent judge of character. She's willing to admit when someone sees something she doesn't. She hates dirty cops, which seems like it has a story behind it. She's been married several times, she likes black coffee, and she scares Jimmy Palmer. I am interested to see her do more things, and to see her interact with the others more, because she seemed to have at least some of Gibbs's trust if he trusts her enough in interrogation. McGee seemed to be at least intrigued by her, if nothing else. I feel like at this point we know a little bit less about Agent Reeves. I think it's nice that we know that Tony seems to like him and trust him, at least to some extent. It seems like DiNozzo would be comfortable with Reeves being next in line after him. We know that he's kind of spunky and funny, seems intelligent, and he likes oranges. I'd like to be introduced to more of his character. I think Sarah Clark and Dwayne Henry both did a really good job. They both seem like really good actors, and I think their characters seem interesting. You know what? This is a really good episode for Gibbs, actually. He had a bunch of scenes where he got to show that really great bond with Emily. I thought the dynamic was awesome, and I thought it was nice when they compared her to Diane. He also seemed very concerned about Ziva. There was one part where he was like, if he finds her before we do, and he literally just kind of looked like he was gonna cry a little bit. I really enjoyed all of the Gibbs stuff this episode. The Ziva stuff. There was way more Ziva than I had initially anticipated, but I'm not complaining. I didn't expect her to be as heavily incorporated into the case as she was, but I actually think I kind of liked it that way. Everything in this episode still led back to that same central plot. Sometimes it works better to have separate plots happening, and then sometimes I think it works better to have that one central plot. For this episode, I think I really liked how it all came back to that one plot line. They said Ziva's name so much in this episode, and I loved it. In the first 90 seconds after she's introduced into this episode, they say her name 8 times. From the moment they brought Jacob into interrogation, I kept waiting for them to be like, Ziva's dead. So the fact that they held out until the last 30 seconds to introduce that idea, I appreciated it. And, cliffhangers are kind of annoying sometimes, but I liked that they didn't give it away whether she died or not. I'll talk more about this in spoilers and theories, but I think this has been a whole new door that's been opened up for this arc. Again, I'm gonna be a little sad if Ziva dies. Just a little bit. I enjoy this arc, I think. The plotline's really interesting. The one thing is, though, we're kind of going into Tony's final episode without a solid idea of how he's going to leave. No one came in this episode and was like, oh my gosh, there's an opening at NCIS Spain. It's a lot to think about. And with this, we're leading into the finale, so I really hope we see a lot of good Tony stuff happening. I love Tony and Michael Weatherly. Tony is such a wonderful character. Of course, I'm gonna miss Michael Weatherly being part of this cast. He's amazing. I'm excited to support him in his new projects. I know he's in that Dr. Phil show on CBS, as everyone keeps calling it. But I'm excited. So that was the recap and review for NCIS Season 13, Episode 23, Dead Letter. It kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. I liked the episode a lot. I can't wait to see how it ties in with the finale, and I can't wait to see the finale itself. And with that, I'll see you guys for the spoilers and theories video for NCIS Season 13, Episode 24, Family First.